Fleet Commander Zorax Pell stared at the gleaming hull of the Intrepid, the most advanced warship ever constructed in Confederation history. 30 billion credits of cutting-edge technology, wrapped in a sleek, predator-like frame that stretched nearly a kilometer from bow to stern. Positioned at the center of the Confederation Central Shipyard, orbiting Arethia 4, the vessel commanded attention, its white-silver hull reflecting the distant sun and casting prismatic patterns across the shipyard's vast interior. Zorax's 4 eyes narrowed as he observed the flurry of activity around the ship. Technicians swarmed like industrious insects, making final calibrations to the outer sensor arrays. Security drones patrolled in precise formations, their propulsion units emitting soft blue halos. Everything appeared to be in order, exactly as a Quatrani commander would expect. And yet, "Commander Pell!" The voice came from behind him, formal and clipped. Zorax turned, his upper eyes focusing on the approaching figure, while his lower pair remained fixed on the shipyard's status displays, projected onto the observation deck's transparent wall. "Chief Engineer Tass, I trust the final diagnostics are proceeding according to schedule?" Lumi Tass, a slender luminari with pale, almost translucent skin that glowed with a subtle inner light, characteristic of her species, hesitated, her expression clouded, dimming the natural luminescence of her face. "That's why I've come to speak with you. Sir, there's a complication." Zorax felt his neck ridges stiffen. Complications, at this stage, with the Confederation Council expecting deployment within 48 hours, were unacceptable. "Explain." "It's the AI Navigation Core," Lumi said, activating her data pad. A holographic display sprang to life between them, showing scrolling diagnostic data. "It's rejecting all pilot interface protocols." "That's impossible." Zorax dismissed the notion with a sharp gesture. The Intrepid was designed to operate without a pilot. The AI is the pilot. That's what makes this so puzzling. "Sir." Lumi scrolled through several more screens of data. "The system keeps returning a pilot compatibility error during the final integration tests. We've run 17 diagnostic cycles. The hardware is perfect. The quantum processors are functioning at optimal capacity. The issue appears to be embedded in the core programming itself." Zorax felt his mandibles clench. "Has your team isolated the problematic code?" "Partially," Lumi replied, her natural glow dimming further. "It appears to be an encrypted authentication protocol. The ship... Well, sir, the ship is demanding a pilot with a specific genetic signature." "What species?" Zorax demanded, all 4 eyes now focused intently on the engineer. Lumi's voice dropped. "Human, sir." The word hung in the air between them. Humans. The newest, barely integrated species in the galactic community. A primitive race that had achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 years ago. Their technology cobbled together from traded scraps and reverse-engineered artifacts. A species still confined mostly to their home system, with just a handful of colonial outposts beyond. Zorax felt his pride curdle into something sour. "There must be a mistake." "I've verified it personally," Lumi insisted. "The code is buried deep, Commander. It's not a glitch. It was intentionally programmed into the navigation core. The Intrepid will not engage its propulsion systems unless it detects a human genetic signature in the pilot's chair." Before Zorax could respond, a harsh voice cut through their conversation. "And who, precisely, is responsible for this sabotage?" Admiral Krev, a towering Dravarian with a carapace bearing the scars of a dozen campaigns against the Krell, had approached without either of them noticing. His 4 arms were folded across his chest, the claws of his upper limbs clicking together in a rhythm that betrayed barely controlled anger. "It's not sabotage, Admiral," Lumi said, her voice steady despite the intimidating presence of the Confederation's most decorated officer. "It's an intentional design parameter. The signatures in the code match those of the original development team. This was a feature, not a flaw." "A feature?" Krev's voice rose, causing several nearby technicians to flinch and move away. "To make our most advanced warship dependent on a species that barely understands artificial gravity." Zorax, acutely aware of the growing audience to their conversation, stepped closer to Krev and lowered his voice. "Admiral, perhaps we should continue this discussion in the command center." Krev glared at him but gave a curt nod. As they moved away from the observation deck, Zorax cast one last glance at the Intrepid. The ship now seemed to be mocking him, its sleek lines and advanced systems hiding a secret that threatened to unravel not just the deployment schedule, but potentially his entire career. The command center was a model of Confederation efficiency, a hexagonal room with workstations arranged in concentric circles around a central holographic projector. Currently, the projector displayed a tactical map of the Arethian system and the surrounding sectors, with pulsing red markers indicating the last known positions of Krell scout ships. As the door sealed behind them, Krev rounded on Lumi. "Explain exactly what you mean by intentional design parameter. Engineer TOS." Lumi stood her ground, her species' natural luminescence brightening slightly, a sign of emotional intensity among the Luminari. The Quantum Navigation Core was designed by a multi-species team, including several human consultants. The code signatures indicate that the authentication protocol was implemented by Dr. Eliza Chen, the lead designer from Earth. And why wasn't this requirement disclosed during any of the project reviews? Krev demanded. "It was hidden, sir," Lumi explained. "Embedded within millions of lines of quantum encryption, it only became apparent when we attempted to bring the propulsion systems online for final testing." Zorax, watching the tactical display with growing unease, spoke up. "Can it be removed?" Lumi shook her head. "Not without destabilizing the entire navigation matrix. The protocol is integrated into the quantum decision trees that allow the AI to process faster-than-light calculations. Attempting to extract it would be like trying to remove a specific genetic sequence from a living organism without killing the host. We'd have to rebuild the entire navigation core from scratch." "How long would that take?" Zorax asked, already suspecting the answer. 8 months, minimum," Lumi replied. "And there's no guarantee we could replicate Dr. Chen's work without her direct involvement. The quantum algorithms are elegant, beyond what our team could have developed independently." Krev slammed one of his lower fists onto a nearby console. 8 months! The Krell will have breached the Vega barrier by then. The Intrepid was supposed to be our answer to their latest offensive. The room fell silent. The Krell threat hung over the conversation like a storm cloud. For the past decade, the insectoid species had been pushing steadily into Confederation space, their battle fleets operating with a predictive efficiency that had confounded Confederation tacticians. Each Confederation counter-strategy was anticipated and neutralized before it could be fully deployed. Intelligence suggested the Krell used some form of predictive computation that allowed them to model Confederation tactics with uncanny accuracy. The Intrepid, with its revolutionary AI core and advanced weapon systems, was designed specifically to counter this advantage, to introduce an element of unpredictability into the battlefield equation. And now it sat uselessly in dock, refusing to fly without a human at the helm. "What about a genetic spoofing device?" Zorax suggested. "Could we trick the ship into believing a non-human pilot has the required genetic signature?" Lumi's glow dimmed again. "We've already attempted that, sir. The authentication protocol includes quantum entanglement verification. It can detect artificial genetic patterns. It needs to be a genuine human." Krev began pacing, his claws clicking against the polished floor. So we need a human. Fine. Let's requisition one from their government. It's not that simple. Admiral, Zorax cautioned. Humans aren't Confederation citizens. They have observer status only. We can't compel their cooperation. Then we negotiate, Krev said, his voice hard. Or do you suggest we simply inform the Council that their 30 billion credit investment is useless because someone decided to play a practical joke? Zorax felt the weight of the situation settling onto his shoulders. His reputation, his career trajectory, perhaps even the safety of multiple Confederation worlds, all now hinged on convincing a species barely known to the galactic community to provide a pilot for a warship they had no part in commissioning. We'll send a delegation to Earth, he decided. I'll lead it myself. You? Krev's tone was skeptical. The fleet commander? Yes, Zorax replied firmly. This requires delicate handling. Admiral, the humans must understand the urgency without feeling coerced. And I. He hesitated, his pride warring with pragmatism. I need to understand why their input was considered necessary to the Intrepid's function in the first place. Krev considered this, then nodded grudgingly. Very well, Commander. You have the Council's authorization, but be aware. They expect the Intrepid operational within the week. The Krell won't wait while we court a primitive species. As Krev stalked from the room, Lumi approached Zorax. Commander, there's something else you should know. What is it, Engineer? The authentication protocol. It doesn't just verify human genetic patterns, she said quietly. It's specifically calibrated for piloting aptitude. It won't accept just any human. It needs someone with exceptional reflexes and spatial processing capabilities. Zorax stared at her. You're telling me we need not just a human, but a specific type of human. A pilot, Lumi confirmed. A very good one. Zorax turned back to the tactical display, watching as another red marker appeared at the edge of the map. Another Krell vessel, probing Confederation defenses. Time was running out. Prepare a diplomatic shuttle, he ordered. We depart for Earth in 6 hours. The diplomatic shuttle, a sleek vessel designed for speed rather than comfort, dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. Zorax, seated in the command chair, observed the view screen with careful neutrality as the blue-green homeworld of humanity came into view. Despite his best efforts to maintain professional detachment, Zorax couldn't help but feel a prickle of curiosity. Few Confederation officials of his rank had visited Earth. The species was still considered a galactic backwater, technically capable of interstellar travel, but lacking the infrastructure and experience to be a significant player in Confederation politics. Entering standard approach vector, announced the pilot, a young Quatrani whose movements betrayed nervous energy. Earth Orbital Station has acknowledged our diplomatic clearance. Zorax nodded. Maintain protocol. Remember, we are guests here. The shuttle glided smoothly toward a sprawling structure in high Earth orbit. Unlike the elegant, unified design of Confederation stations, Earth Orbital appeared to have been constructed piecemeal over decades, modules of varying styles connected by transfer tubes, solar arrays extending at odd angles, and a docking ring that showed signs of multiple expansions. As they approached, Zorax studied the various spacecraft docked at the station. Primitive by Confederation standards, but impressive considering humanity's short time as a spacefaring species. There was an industriousness to their designs that hinted at a practical, adaptable mindset. Docking procedures initiated, the pilot reported. Station control is directing us to Bay 17. The shuttle maneuvered carefully into the designated bay, the docking clamps engaging with a slight shudder that would never have been tolerated in a Confederation facility. Zorax made a mental note of the imprecision, but said nothing. Atmosphere pressure equalized, the pilot continued. Station authorities request that we wait for their diplomatic reception team. Zorax rose from his command chair, straightening his formal uniform with a practiced gesture. Very well. Let's not keep our hosts waiting. As the airlock cycled open, Zorax was greeted by a small delegation of humans. At their head stood a woman with dark skin and tightly coiled hair streaked with silver, wearing what appeared to be a formal uniform of deep blue with silver insignia. Fleet Commander Pell, she greeted him, her voice carrying the musical cadence characteristic of human speech. I am Director Aaliyah Jackson of Earth Space Administration. Welcome to Earth Orbital Station. Zorax performed the formal Quatrani greeting gesture, a slight incline of the head with eyes lowered briefly. Director Jackson, thank you for accommodating our unexpected arrival. Jackson's expression remained neutral, but Zorax detected a slight tension in her posture. The Confederation rarely sends delegations of your rank without substantial advance notice. Commander, I hope this isn't an indication of some emergency. Perceptive, Zorax thought. Before he could respond, Admiral Krev pushed forward from behind him. Despite Zorax's insistence that he could handle the diplomatic mission alone, the Council had ordered Krev to accompany him, ostensibly as a military liaison, but more likely to ensure that Zorax didn't make any unauthorized concessions. Director Jackson, Krev said, not bothering with formal gestures. We require immediate access to your top military pilots. Confederation security is at stake. Zorax winced internally at the Dravarian's bluntness. So much for diplomatic subtlety. Jackson's expression cooled noticeably. Admiral Krev, while Earth respects its agreements with the Confederation, we are not yet full members, nor are we under any obligation to provide military personnel without proper protocols being observed. Perhaps, Zorax interjected smoothly. We could discuss the specifics in a more private setting. I assure you, Director, our request is both legitimate and urgent. Jackson studied him for a moment, then nodded. Of course. We've prepared a conference room, if you'll follow me. As they walked through the station corridors, Zorax observed the humans they passed, so physically similar to one another compared to the diversity of Confederation species, yet each with subtle variations in coloring, size, and features. They moved with an energy that seemed characteristic of their kind, quick, purpose-driven motions that contrasted with the measured pace preferred by most Confederation races. The conference room was small but functional, with a view screen displaying Earth rotating slowly below them. As they seated themselves around an oval table, Jackson activated a recording device with a deliberate motion. For transparency, she explained. Standard protocol for unexpected diplomatic engagements. Krev grunted disapprovingly, but Zorax nodded. Understood. Director Jackson, the Confederation has recently completed construction of an advanced warship, the Intrepid. During final systems integration, we discovered a unique requirement encoded in its navigation systems. Jackson's eyebrows rose slightly. And this requirement involves Earth somehow. It involves humans, Zorax clarified. Specifically, the ship's AI navigation core will only accept pilot interface from someone with human genetic markers. Without a human pilot, the vessel cannot engage its propulsion systems. A moment of silence followed this revelation. Jackson exchanged glances with her aides, then leaned forward. Commander Pell, are you suggesting that Confederation engineers deliberately designed a warship that requires a human pilot? Because if so, this is the first we're hearing of it. The requirement was embedded in the core programming by a member of the design team, Zorax explained, a human consultant named Dr. Eliza Chen. Recognition flashed across Jackson's face. Dr. Chen was part of the cultural exchange program 3 years ago, a quantum computing specialist. Yes, Zorax confirmed. She apparently left a surprise in her work. And now you need a human pilot, Jackson stated flatly. For a Confederation warship that Earth had no part in commissioning, and which may be deployed in conflicts we have no stake in. The Krell are a threat to all spacefaring species. Krev cut in harshly. Your stake is your continued existence. Jackson's expression hardened. The Krell have made no aggressive moves toward Earth or our colonies. Admiral, they appear content to focus on Confederation territories. For now, Krev retorted. Their expansion patterns are clear. It's only a matter of time before they turn their attention to your worlds. Zorax raised a hand to forestall further argument. Director Jackson, we understand this is an unusual request, but the Intrepid represents a significant strategic advantage against a genuine threat. Its advanced AI and weapon systems were specifically designed to counter Krell predictive tactics. And yet, Jackson observed with a hint of irony, this advanced vessel can't function without a human at the controls. Interesting design choice. A design choice we're still investigating, Zorax admitted, but the immediate need remains. We require a human pilot with exceptional aptitude. The authentication protocol is calibrated for specific neurological and physiological traits. Jackson leaned back in her chair, studying both Confederation officers. Even if I were inclined to help. Commander, this would require approval from the Earth Council. There are legal implications, treaty considerations. A new voice interrupted from the doorway. I'll do it. All heads turned to see a human male standing in the open doorway. He was tall for his species, with features suggesting mixed ancestry, dark hair cut short, and an athletic build. He wore a flight suit with Earth Space Administration insignia and captain's bars. Captain Reyes, Jackson said, her tone sharp with disapproval. This is a closed meeting. Sorry. Director, the man, Reyes said, though he didn't sound particularly apologetic. Word travels fast on a space station, and since you're discussing the need for a pilot, I figured I should volunteer before you waste time with committees and politicians. Zorax found himself intrigued by the human's directness. It was refreshingly different from the cautious diplomatic language he was accustomed to. Jackson frowned. Captain Alexander Reyes, our chief test pilot, she explained to the Confederation officers, before turning back to Reyes. Captain, this is not as simple as volunteering for a test flight. There are significant diplomatic and legal issues to consider. With respect, Director, Reyes countered, stepping fully into the room. If the Confederation needs a pilot urgently, every minute spent in discussion is a minute lost. And if I understand correctly, this isn't just any ship. It's one that specifically requires human piloting capability. He turned to Zorax. Am I right, Commander? Zorax nodded, studying the human with new interest. The authentication protocol requires specific neural patterns and reflexes typical of human pilots. The more accomplished the pilot, the more likely the ship is to accept them. Then I'm your best option, Reyes said with confidence that bordered on arrogance. Ask anyone in the ESA. I've logged more hours in experimental craft than any 3 pilots combined. Krev made a dismissive gesture. This isn't some primitive chemical rocket. Human. The Intrepid is the most advanced vessel in the Confederation fleet. All the more reason to let me fly it, Reyes replied, unperturbed by the Admiral's condescension. I've adapted to every new craft I've ever encountered, and if your ship was partly designed by a human, it can't be that incomprehensible to another human. Jackson sighed, clearly frustrated but also thoughtful. Captain Reyes, While I appreciate your enthusiasm, we cannot make a unilateral decision. The implications of providing a human pilot for a Confederation warship extend beyond a simple test flight. Director, Zorax interjected, seeing an opportunity. Perhaps we could frame this as an extension of the cultural exchange program. Captain Reyes would serve as an observer and technical liaison, not formally as Confederation military personnel. Jackson considered this. A temporary arrangement, with clear parameters and an observer status only. Precisely, Zorax agreed. A technical necessity, not a military integration. Reyes smiled. Sounds good to me. When do we leave? Captain, Jackson said warningly, I haven't agreed to anything yet. But you will, Reyes replied with that same confident smile. Because it's the most efficient solution to a problem that benefits everyone. The Confederation gets their ship operational. Earth demonstrates good faith to potential allies. And I get to fly the most advanced vessel in known space. Win-win-win. Zorax found himself warming to the humans' pragmatic approach, so different from the cautious, protocol-laden decision-making typical of Confederation diplomacy. Perhaps this was why Dr. Chen had encoded the human requirement, this capacity for direct action and intuitive problem-solving. Jackson looked from Reyes to the Confederation officers and back again. Finally. She sighed. I will present this proposal to the Earth Council, with my recommendation that we approve a limited technical liaison role for Captain Reyes, subject to specific protections and guarantees. How soon can we expect an answer? Zorax asked, mindful of Krev's growing impatience. I'll request an emergency session, Jackson promised. We should have a decision within 12 hours. Make it 6, Krev demanded. Jackson's expression cooled again. Admiral, we are not under Confederation authority. The Council will convene as quickly as possible, but I will not pressure them unduly based on your timetable. Zorax stepped in before Krev could escalate further. 6 hours would be appreciated, Director, but we understand the constraints. We're grateful for your willingness to expedite the process. As the meeting adjourned, Reyes approached Zorax, while Jackson engaged Krev in a tense discussion about accommodation for the Confederation delegation. So, Commander, Reyes said conversationally, what's this ship like? The one that's asking for a human touch? Zorax studied the human, noting the genuine curiosity in his expression. The Intrepid is unlike anything in our fleet, or yours. A quantum AI navigation core, adaptive shield harmonics, gravitational weapon systems. It was designed to be unpredictable, to counter an enemy that has consistently anticipated our conventional tactics. Sounds like my kind of challenge, Reyes said with evident enthusiasm. But I'm curious, why would your designer build in a requirement for a human pilot? From what I understand, most Confederation vessels are either fully automated or piloted by species with more advanced neural structures than ours. It was a perceptive question, one that had been troubling Zorax since he first learned of the authentication protocol. That, Captain Reyes, is what I intend to find out. Dr. Chen left no explanation in her code, only the requirement itself. Reyes nodded thoughtfully. Well, maybe the answer will become clear once I'm in the pilot's seat. He extended his hand. Looking forward to working with you. Commander, after a moment's hesitation, Zorax reciprocated the human gesture, clasping Reyes's hand briefly. The human's skin was warmer than a Quatrani's, the grip firm but not challenging. A simple gesture, but symbolic of the unexpected partnership they were forming. Likewise, Captain, Zorax replied, surprised to find that he meant it. Exactly 6 hours and 17 minutes later, the Earth Council delivered their decision. Captain Alexander Reyes was authorized to serve as a technical liaison and test pilot for the Intrepid, under specific conditions that protected both his autonomy and Earth's political neutrality. The agreement was carefully worded to avoid any implication that Earth was providing military support to the Confederation. As the diplomatic shuttle prepared to depart Earth Orbital Station, Zorax found himself in the unexpected position of feeling grateful to a species he had previously regarded as barely worth diplomatic consideration. The irony was not lost on him. Reyes boarded the shuttle with a single duffel bag and an expression of barely contained excitement. Despite the gravity of the situation, or perhaps because of it, Zorax found the human's enthusiasm oddly refreshing. It contrasted sharply with Krev's grim determination and his own carefully maintained professional demeanor. "Welcome aboard, Captain Reyes," Zorax greeted him formally. "We'll be returning to Arethea 4 at maximum speed. The journey should take approximately 17 hours. "Looking forward to it," Reyes replied, settling into a seat designed for a physiology different from his own. He adjusted himself without complaint and immediately began studying the shuttle's control interfaces with obvious interest. Krev, seated across from them, watched the human with undisguised skepticism. "Let's hope your skills match your confidence. Captain, the fate of multiple worlds may depend on it." "No pressure, though, right?" Reyes quipped, earning a confused look from the Admiral and a barely suppressed smile from Zorax. As the shuttle broke orbit and aligned for the jump to hyperspace, Zorax found himself watching Reyes's reactions. The human observed each procedure with keen attention, occasionally asking pointed technical questions that revealed a deeper understanding of spaceflight principles than Zorax had expected. Perhaps there was more to humans than the Confederation had recognized, a thought that would have seemed absurd to him just days ago, but now seemed increasingly plausible. The journey back to Arethea Omat passed without incident, though the tension aboard the small vessel was palpable. Krev spent most of the time in communication with Confederation Command, while Zorax found himself engaged in lengthy discussions with Reyes about the differences between human and Confederation flight systems. "Your navigation calculations are incredibly precise," Reyes observed during one such conversation. "But they seem, I don't know, almost too structured? Like they follow patterns that could be predicted if you studied them long enough." Zorax frowned. "Our navigation systems are the most advanced in known space." "I'm not questioning their advancement," Reyes clarified, "just noting that high optimization often comes at the cost of variability. Human pilots tend to introduce small inconsistencies, minor course corrections, intuitive adjustments based on feel rather than pure calculation." "Inefficiencies," Krev interjected from across the cabin. "Or unpredictability," Reyes countered, "which, from what the commander has told me, is exactly what you need against these Krell." Zorax considered this. "Is that why you think Dr. Chen encoded the human requirement? To introduce unpredictability?" Reyes shrugged. "It's a theory. I guess we'll find out when we get there." When they finally arrived at the Arethea 4 shipyard, Lumi Tas was waiting for them at the docking bay, her natural luminescence dimmed by what appeared to be exhaustion. "Commander," she greeted Zorax, before her gaze shifted curiously to Reyes. "Is this—" "Captain Alexander Reyes, Earth Space Administration," Zorax confirmed. "Our potential solution to the Intrepid's piloting requirements." Lumi studied the human with undisguised interest. "Fascinating. I've never worked directly with a human before." "First time for everything," Reyes said amiably, extending his hand as he had with Zorax. Lumi hesitated, then carefully reciprocated the gesture. "The authentication protocol is very specific. Captain, I hope you understand that there's no guarantee it will accept you, despite your qualifications." "Only one way to find out," Reyes replied. "When can I see the ship?" "Immediately," Krev ordered, before either Zorax or Lumi could respond. Every hour we delay is an hour the Krell gain advantage. Zorax nodded his agreement, though he would have preferred a more measured approach. Engineer Tass, please escort Captain Reyes to the Intrepid. I'll join you shortly after I brief the Council on our diplomatic progress. As Lumi led Reyes away, Zorax heard the human asking her detailed questions about the ship's quantum computing architecture. Despite his initial reservations, Zorax found himself hoping that this unconventional solution would work. The alternative, admitting to the Council that their flagship vessel was unusable, was unthinkable. The Intrepid loomed even larger when viewed from the main docking collar than it had from the observation deck. Reyes craned his neck, taking in the enormous vessel with an expression of undisguised awe. "She's beautiful," he said quietly, "like a predator bird." Lumi, walking beside him, nodded. The design was inspired by the hunting raptors of Dravaria Prime. Form following function. The hull configuration optimizes both weapons deployment and sensor range. As they approached the main airlock, Reyes noticed something unusual. The entry port is pulsing. Indeed. The lighting around the ship's main entry was cycling through a pattern of soft illumination, almost like a heartbeat. "That's new," Lumi said, her bioluminescence fluctuating with surprise. "The external systems shouldn't be active yet." The airlock cycled open as they approached, without any command being given. "It seems the ship is aware of your arrival," Lumi observed, her scientific curiosity overriding her concern. "The AI is more responsive than our tests indicated." They entered the ship, passing through a series of security checkpoints that scanned them without human or alien intervention. As they walked the main corridor toward the bridge, Reyes noticed that lights activated ahead of them and dimmed behind them, as if the ship were directing their path. "Is this normal behavior?" he asked. "No," Lumi admitted. "The AI wasn't supposed to have this level of autonomous function until after final activation. It's as if—" She trailed off, studying the patterns of light. "As if it's waking up," Reyes finished for her. When they reached the bridge, they found a large, circular chamber dominated by a central command chair, surrounded by holographic interface stations. Unlike the utilitarian design of the corridors, the bridge featured elegant curves and ambient lighting that created an almost organic feel. "This is where you'll interface with the navigation core," Lumi explained, gesturing to the command chair. "The neural linkage is non-invasive. It reads brainwave patterns and subtle electrical impulses from your nervous system." Reyes approached the chair cautiously. As he did, the holographic interfaces around it flickered to life, displaying information in standard Confederation script, which then shifted before his eyes into Earth Standard English. "It's adapting to me," he said, surprised. "Impossible!" a new voice declared from the doorway. Zorax had arrived, with Admiral Krev close behind him. The translation protocols would need to be manually configured for human language patterns. "Apparently not," Lumi said, studying the displays with professional interest. "The AI is showing adaptation capabilities beyond our projections." Reyes circled the command chair, examining it from all angles. "So I just sit down and—" "What? Think at it?" "Essentially, yes," Lumi confirmed. "The interface is designed to interpret neural patterns into navigational commands. For most species, this requires significant training. But if the authentication protocol is specifically calibrated for human pilots, it might just work right away," Reyes finished, nodding. He looked at Zorax. "Permission to try, Commander?" Zorax hesitated only briefly. "Proceed, Captain." With a deep breath, Reyes lowered himself into the command chair. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, abruptly, The chair adjusted its contours to better fit his human physiology. The holographic displays surrounding him shifted position, angling precisely to his eye level. The ambient lighting throughout the bridge pulsed once, twice, then stabilized at a slightly warmer hue. A voice, melodious, genderless, with a quality that seemed to resonate directly in the mind rather than through the ears, spoke. "Welcome aboard. Captain Reyes. Pilot authentication successful. Neural interface calibration at 87% and rising." The Confederation officers stared in amazement. Krev was the first to recover. "It knows your name." "How does it know your name?" Reyes, looking slightly dazed but smiling, shook his head. "I have no idea. I didn't tell it anything." Lumi approached one of the secondary consoles, which activated at her touch. "The AI is accessing the shuttle's systems logs. It must have extracted Captain Reyes's identity from our journey records. That level of system integration wasn't in the specifications," Zorax noted, a mixture of concern and admiration in his voice. "Neural interface calibration complete," the ship's voice announced. "Pilot compatibility optimal. Primary systems online. Awaiting mission parameters." Reyes ran his hands over the armrests of the command chair, feeling subtle vibrations beneath his fingertips. "It's like the ship is humming. I can feel it thinking." A tall, slender alien with mottled green skin and large, compound eyes entered the bridge, moving with the careful precision of someone accustomed to laboratory conditions rather than spacecraft. Fascinating. A genuine neural resonance pattern. The human brain must be producing harmonic frequencies that synchronize with the quantum fluctuations in the navigation core. "Captain Reyes, this is Dr. Neb Pax, our xenobiologist." Zorax introduced. "Dr. Pax has been studying the theoretical basis for the authentication protocol." "A pleasure to meet you, Captain," Dr. Pax said, approaching with a handheld scanner. "May I? This is a unique opportunity to observe human-AI interaction at the quantum level." Reyes nodded, and Dr. Pax began taking readings, making soft clicking sounds of interest as data appeared on his device. "Remarkable," the xenobiologist murmured. "The human neurological architecture appears to generate micro-variations in its electrical patterns, tiny randomizations that would be considered errors or inefficiencies in most species, but which create a kind of quantum noise that the AI is integrating into its decision matrices." "In plain language, Doctor?" Krev demanded impatiently. Dr. Pax looked up from his scanner. "In plain language. Admiral, the human brain introduces unpredictability into the system. Small, seemingly random variations that cannot be algorithmically predicted because they aren't generated by algorithms. They're the result of biochemical processes unique to human neural structure." "Unpredictability," Zorax repeated, understanding dawning. "That's what Dr. Chen built into the system, not just human piloting, but human unpredictability. Against an enemy that predicts conventional tactics with near-perfect accuracy," Lumi added. "Unpredictability would be the ultimate weapon." "So the ship works?" Krev asked, cutting through the scientific discussion. "It will fly with the human at the controls." As if in answer, the holographic displays around Reyes shifted to show the shipyard external views and propulsion readiness indicators. "All propulsion systems online," the ship's voice confirmed. "Ready for departure sequence." Reyes looked to Zorax, a question in his expression. Zorax nodded, then activated his communication device. "Control Center. This is Fleet Commander Pell. Prepare for Intrepid Systems Test. Clearance authorization. Pell Alpha 79. Acknowledged. Commander, came the response. "Docking clamps will disengage on your mark." Zorax turned to Reyes. "Captain, initiate undocking procedure." Reyes nodded, then closed his eyes briefly, concentrating. The holographic displays responded to his thoughts, commands executing without physical input. "Undocking sequence initiated," he reported. "Power to maneuvering thrusters at standby. Docking clamps disengaging." The control center reported, but nothing happened. The ship remained firmly secured to the shipyard structure. "Control status of docking clamps?" Zorax demanded. "Commander, we're showing a malfunction in the release mechanism. The automated systems are not responding to commands." Lumi moved quickly to an engineering station. "The shipyard safety protocols are preventing release. There's a software conflict between the shipyard systems and the Intrepid's AI. Override it," Krev ordered. "I can't," Lumi replied, her luminescence flickering with stress. "The safety interlocks are hardwired. They can only be disengaged from the main control center or through physical intervention." Zorax activated his communicator again. "Control, dispatch maintenance teams to manually release the docking clamps." "Acknowledged, Commander. Estimated time to completion, 45 minutes. Krev made a sound of frustration. 45 minutes! We don't have— He was interrupted by an urgent tone from Zorax's communicator. "Commander Pell, priority message from Confederation Deep Space Monitoring." Zorax exchanged a grim look with Krev before responding. "Put it through." "Commander," a tense voice reported. "We're detecting 3 Krell battlecruisers that have just emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Arethian system. Current trajectory indicates they will reach weapons range of the shipyard in approximately 17 minutes. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. 3 Krell cruisers could devastate the shipyard before a conventional defense could be mobilized. The Intrepid was supposed to be their defense against exactly this scenario, and it was trapped in its docking berth. "Options?" Zorax asked, looking around the bridge. "Conventional defense vessels could intercept," Krev suggested, though his tone lacked conviction. "If we scramble everything in the system, they'll be outnumbered and outgunned," Zorax concluded, "and the Krell will have predicted standard defense patterns." "What about unconventional methods?" Reyes asked suddenly. All eyes turned to him. "You said this ship was designed to be unpredictable. Let's be unpredictable." "We're open to suggestions, Captain," Zorax replied. Reyes leaned forward in the command chair, his expression intense. "The ship is powered up, right? Weapons, shields, everything except propulsion?" "Yes," Lumi confirmed. "But we can't move without disengaging the docking clamps." "What if we don't need to disengage them?" Reyes suggested. "What if we break them instead?" Krev's eyes narrowed. "Explain." Reyes pointed to the tactical display showing the shipyard's position relative to the gas giant Arethia 4 orbited. "The shipyard is in high orbit around Arethia 4. The planet has a hydrogen-helium atmosphere, right?" "Correct," Dr. Pax confirmed. "Standard gas giant composition, with trace elements and compounds in the upper atmosphere." "So, here's what we do," Reyes continued, his words coming faster as the plan formed. "We use the Intrepid's shields to create a bubble around the forward section of the ship. We extend that bubble just far enough to encompass the docking clamps. Then we decompress the docking bay explosively. The force should stress the clamps enough for us to break free with a burst from the maneuvering thrusters." Lumi shook her head. "The force wouldn't be sufficient. The clamps are designed to withstand extreme stress. Then we need more force," Reyes insisted. "Once free, we dive into the upper atmosphere of Arethia 4. We configure the forward cargo holds to open in a controlled manner, filling them with atmospheric gas as we skim through the clouds. Then we seal the holds, compress the gas, and use the ship's weapon systems to superheat it." Understanding dawned on Zorax's face. Creating a propulsion bomb. Exactly. Reyes nodded enthusiastically. We'd have to time it precisely. Open the holds in the direction we want to go, ignite the gas, and ride the shockwave. It would give us an unexpected vector and velocity that the Krell couldn't possibly predict. That's... Lumi began, her luminescence flickering rapidly as she ran calculations. Theoretically possible, but extremely dangerous. The timing would have to be perfect, and the structural stress on the ship would be enormous. Can the Intrepid handle it? Zorax asked. Its structural integrity is unmatched in the fleet, Lumi admitted. If any ship could survive such a maneuver, it would be the Intrepid. And the alternative is waiting here to be destroyed, Krev added grimly. I vote we try the humans' plan. Zorax nodded decisively. Captain Reyes, take whatever actions are necessary to free this ship and intercept those Krell cruisers. Reyes took a deep breath, then settled more firmly into the command chair. Intrepid. Configure shield harmonics to create a localized bubble extending 3 meters beyond hull parameters at docking connection points. Shield configuration in progress. The ship's voice responded smoothly. Warning. Proposed configuration creates vulnerability in overall shield integrity. Acknowledged, Reyes replied. Proceed with configuration. Prepare for explosive decompression of docking bay on my mark. The holographic displays shifted to show shield status and structural integrity readings. Lumi moved to an engineering station, monitoring the stress levels on the hull. Shields configured, the ship reported, awaiting decompression command. Reyes glanced at Zorax, who nodded. All non-essential personnel, clear the docking bay. The commander ordered over the ship-wide communication system. Emergency decompression imminent. Once confirmation was received that the bay was clear, Reyes continued. Intrepid. On my mark. Decompress docking bay and apply maximum thrust to forward maneuvering jets. 3, 2, 1. Mark. A shudder ran through the ship as the atmosphere in the docking bay exploded outward into space. Simultaneously, the maneuvering thrusters fired at full power, straining against the docking clamps. Structural stress at 93% of tolerance, Lumi reported tensely. Docking clamps showing microfractures, but holding. More power to the thrusters, Reyes ordered. Cycle them in a harmonic pattern to create resonance with the clamp stress points. The ship vibrated more violently as the thrusters adjusted their firing pattern, creating waves of force that hammered at the weakening clamps. Clamp integrity failing, Lumi announced. Stress fractures propagating. With a final, wrenching shudder, the docking clamps gave way. The Intrepid lurched forward, suddenly free of its restraints. We're clear, Reyes exclaimed, setting course for atmospheric insertion, preparing cargo holds for gas collection. The ship accelerated away from the shipyard, angling downward toward the vast, swirling clouds of Arethia 4. On the tactical display, the 3 Krell cruisers continued their approach, still unaware that their prey had broken free. Atmospheric entry in 30 seconds, Reyes reported. Everyone brace for turbulence. Inertial dampeners will be strained. The Intrepid plunged into the upper atmosphere of the gas giant, the hull glowing faintly as it cut through the increasingly dense gases. Reyes guided the ship into a shallow dive, skimming just deep enough to access the richer gas mixtures without risking the crushing pressures of the lower atmosphere. Opening forward cargo holds, he ordered. Beginning gas collection. The ship shuddered as the massive cargo bay doors opened against the atmospheric resistance. Gauges on the holographic displays showed the holds rapidly filling with compressed hydrogen and helium, along with trace elements that would increase the explosive potential. Krell vessels adjusting course, Zorax noted, watching the tactical display. "They've detected us and are moving to intercept our predicted exit trajectory." Reyes smiled grimly. "They're in for a surprise. Holds at 80% capacity, sealing cargo doors." The ship stabilized slightly as the holds closed, now carrying tons of compressed atmospheric gas. Reyes adjusted their course, bringing them deeper into the atmosphere temporarily to mask their movements from the Krell sensors. "Compressing collected gases," he ordered, "preparing for ignition sequence." The ship's systems worked to further compress the volatile mixture, raising its pressure to explosive levels. On the engineering displays, warning indicators flashed as the pressure approached critical limits. "Maximum safe compression achieved," the ship reported. "Awaiting ignition command." Reyes studied the tactical display, calculating trajectories. "The Krell are positioning to intercept us along our logical exit vector, but we're not going to take the logical path." He turned to Zorax. "Commander, what's the status of the shipyard defenses?" "Minimal," Zorax replied. "The shipyard relies primarily on fleet protection. There are point defense batteries, but nothing that would threaten a Krell cruiser." "Perfect," Reyes said. "They won't be expecting us to head back toward the shipyard. Then, here's the plan. We'll ignite the gas to propel us on a trajectory that looks like we're making a run for deep space. But at the peak of our arc, we'll use the gravity of Arethea 4 to slingshot back toward the shipyard, coming at the Krell from behind." Krev looked skeptical. "That's a complex maneuver under normal conditions, with an experimental propulsion method and in combat situations." "It's unpredictable," Reyes countered. "Exactly what this ship was designed for." Zorax considered for only a moment before nodding. "Proceed." "Captain." "Initiating ignition sequence," Reyes announced, opening forward cargo holds and bringing weapon systems online. "Target: compressed atmospheric mixture. Firing in 3, 2, 1. The ship's energy weapons discharged into the compressed gas as the cargo hold doors opened. The resulting explosion was massive, propelling the Intrepid forward with tremendous force. Despite the inertial dampeners, everyone on the bridge was thrown against their restraints as the ship accelerated at a rate that would have crushed an unprotected vessel. "Hull integrity holding," Lumi reported, her voice strained. "Inertial dampeners at maximum capacity." The Intrepid shot out of Arethea 4's atmosphere like a projectile, its trajectory carrying it away from both the planet and the approaching Krell vessels. On the tactical display, the enemy ships immediately adjusted course to pursue. "They've taken the bait," Zorax observed. "They're following our projected course." "Perfect," Reyes said, his hands moving over the control interfaces as he fine-tuned their trajectory. "Initiating gravity assist maneuver in 30 seconds. Prepare for high G turn." The ship arced through space, reaching the apex of its trajectory. Then, using the massive gravitational pull of Arethea 4, it began to curve back toward the planet. And the shipyard. "Krell vessels continuing on original intercept course," Zorax reported. "They haven't detected our course change yet." "They will soon," Reyes said. "Preparing secondary maneuver. Intrepid. Generate a gravitational distortion field at coordinates Mark 37 by 120. "Gravitational weapons are not designed for non-combat use," the ship's AI cautioned. "Consider it combat adjacent," Reyes replied. "Execute." The Intrepid's advanced weapon systems activated, generating a localized distortion in space-time, essentially creating a small, temporary gravity. Well, where none should exist. The effect on the pursuing Krell vessels was immediate. Their formation broke apart as each ship's navigation system detected and responded to the unexpected gravitational anomaly. "They're scattered," Zorax announced, a note of triumph in his voice. "Their formation is broken." "And we're coming around behind them," Reyes added, guiding the ship through the final phase of its slingshot maneuver. Weapons range in 15 seconds. The Intrepid curved around Arethea 4, accelerating as it emerged on the far side, now positioned perfectly behind the disorganized Krell formation. The enemy vessels, still attempting to regroup after the gravitational disruption, were slow to detect the threat behind them. "Weapons locked on targets," the ship reported. "Awaiting fire command." "Fire at will," Zorax ordered. "Take them out before they can regroup." The Intrepid's advanced weapon systems unleashed their full power. Beams of concentrated energy sliced through space, striking the first Krell cruiser with pinpoint accuracy. The enemy vessel's shields flared briefly before collapsing, and a second barrage tore through its hull, triggering a cascade of explosions that ripped the ship apart. The remaining 2 Krell cruisers attempted to maneuver, but the Intrepid's speed and unpredictable movement patterns made it impossible for them to establish a targeting solution. A second Krell vessel succumbed to the Intrepid's weapons, exploding in a brilliant flash of light and debris. The third Krell cruiser, recognizing the futility of continuing the engagement, attempted to retreat, aligning for a jump to hyperspace. But the Intrepid was faster, intercepting the vessel before it could escape and delivering a crippling blow to its propulsion systems. "Final target disabled," Zorax announced. "We've done it. The attack has been neutralized." A cheer went up from the bridge crew, a release of tension after the intense battle. Reyes leaned back in the command chair, a tired but satisfied expression on his face. "Impressive piloting, Captain," Zorax acknowledged. "Your unconventional approach proved decisive." "Just doing what humans do best," Reyes replied with a modest shrug. "Improvising." "Something the Krell clearly weren't expecting," Krev added, his previous skepticism notably absent. "Their predictive systems couldn't account for your tactics." As the Intrepid returned to the shipyard, reports of the battle were already being transmitted to Confederation High Command. The successful defense against a Krell strike force, achieved through methods that defied conventional Confederation military doctrine, had sent shockwaves through the command structure. Within hours, the Confederation Council had convened an emergency session to discuss the implications. Zorax, Krev, and Reyes were summoned to present their account of the engagement, along with Lumi Tas and Dr. Neb Pax, who provided technical and scientific context. The council chamber was an imposing space, with tiered seating arranged in a semicircle facing a central podium. Representatives from each of the 17 Confederation member species occupied their designated positions, their diverse physiologies requiring specialized accommodations. The chamber hummed with tension and expectation as Zorax concluded his formal report. "And so, honored counselors," he finished, "the evidence is clear. The Intrepid's success against the Krell attack force was directly attributable to the unpredictability introduced by Captain Reyes's human neural patterns and his unconventional tactical approach." The head counselor, a Volturi with translucent skin that revealed the complex network of blood vessels beneath, leaned forward. "This brings us to the matter of Project Wildcard. Commander Pell, did you have prior knowledge of this classified directive?" Zorax hesitated, caught off guard by the reference. "No, Counselor. I was unaware of any project by that name." The head counselor gestured, and a holographic display appeared above the central podium, showing classified documentation. Project Wildcard was initiated 3 years ago, following preliminary research into Krell predictive capabilities. A small group within Confederation intelligence theorized that human neural architecture might provide a counter to Krell prediction algorithms. Dr. Eliza Chen was recruited to implement this theory in the Intrepid's design. Murmurs spread through the council chamber as this revelation sank in. Zorax glanced at Krev, who appeared equally surprised by this information. "Why wasn't this disclosed to the military command structure?" Krev demanded. forgetting protocol in his indignation. Secrecy was deemed essential, the head counselor replied calmly. If the Krell had learned of our strategy, they might have developed countermeasures before the Intrepid was operational. Additionally, there were political considerations. Political considerations? Zorax echoed. Another counselor, a Dravarian like Krev, but older and more heavily scarred, spoke up. Not all members of the Confederation were enthusiastic about increasing human involvement in our military affairs. Humans are still considered an unproven species by many. There was concern that explicitly recruiting them as pilots would be seen as an admission of Confederation weakness. Reyes, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. So instead, you built a ship that would force the issue when the time came. A contingency plan, the head counselor confirmed. One that has proven remarkably effective, if today's engagement is any indication. Lumi Tas stepped forward. Counselors, our preliminary analysis suggests that the Intrepid's performance exceeded theoretical projections by 37% when piloted by Captain Reyes. The neural interface achieved synergy levels previously thought impossible, which raises an important question, Dr. Neb Pax added. Should the Confederation consider recruiting additional human pilots for similar vessels? Our research indicates that the same unpredictability advantage could be replicated in other ship designs. This suggestion triggered an immediate debate among the counselors. Some voiced enthusiastic support, citing the tactical advantage demonstrated against the Krell. Others expressed caution or outright opposition, concerned about cultural integration issues and the potential dilution of Confederation military traditions. Director Jackson, who had been invited to observe the proceedings as Earth's representative, rose to address the council. If I may, counselors, Earth understands the significance of today's events, both for the Confederation and for human-Confederation relations. While we appreciate the recognition of human capabilities, any formal integration of human personnel into Confederation military forces would require careful negotiation and clear agreements regarding command structures, legal protections, and political status. The head counselor nodded. A reasonable position. Director Jackson, perhaps this incident provides an opportunity to accelerate discussions regarding Earth's potential membership in the Confederation. The complementary capabilities our species offer each other have been demonstrated quite effectively. As the political discussions continued, Zorax found himself reflecting on the rapid evolution of his own perspective. Just days ago, he had viewed humans as a peripheral species, barely worth diplomatic consideration. Now, he found himself advocating for their inclusion in Confederation affairs at the highest levels. The formal council session eventually concluded with a resolution to establish a joint Human Confederation pilot program, with Captain Reyes as its first member. Earth's application for Confederation membership would be fast-tracked, though full integration would still require years of negotiation and adaptation on both sides. As they left the council chamber, Zorax approached Reyes. "Captain, I owe you an apology." Reyes looked surprised. "For what, Commander?" "For underestimating your species," Zorax replied honestly. "I considered humans primitive and inconsequential. I was wrong." Reyes smiled. "No apology necessary. We humans are used to being underestimated. It's actually worked to our advantage throughout our history." "Another form of unpredictability," Zorax observed with newfound appreciation. "Exactly," Reyes agreed. "So, what happens now? With the Intrepid, the ship is yours to command, if you're willing," Zorax told him. "The Council has assigned me as mission coordinator, but you'll be the pilot of record. We'll be patrolling the Vega barrier, intercepting Krell incursions before they can establish footholds." "And the pilot program?" Director Jackson has agreed to help identify additional human candidates with aptitudes similar to yours. Dr. Neb Pax and Engineer Tass will work with Earth scientists to better understand the neurological factors that make humans effective against Krell prediction systems. Reyes nodded thoughtfully. You know, Commander, all of this makes me wonder. What other unique capabilities might different species bring to the table that have been overlooked because they didn't fit the conventional understanding of advanced? It was a profound question, one that challenged the foundational assumptions of Confederation society. Zorax found himself considering the implications with a new openness of mind. Perhaps that will be our next great discovery, he suggested. A true integration of diverse capabilities, rather than a hierarchy of perceived advancement. I'd drink to that, Reyes said with a grin. Assuming our physiologies allow for compatible beverages. Zorax surprised himself by laughing, a rare display of emotion for a Quatrani officer. I believe we can find something suitable in the diplomatic reception area. After all, fostering cross-species understanding is now part of our official mission. As they walked together toward the reception, Zorax noticed the lights in the corridor pulsing subtly in a pattern that matched their footsteps. Reyes's quick, energetic stride, and his own more measured pace. It reminded him of the Intrepid's response when Reyes had first boarded the vessel. A thought occurred to him. Captain, do you ever get the sense that the Intrepid is aware? Not just as an AI, but as something more? Reyes considered this. When I'm in the pilot's chair, it sometimes feels like there's a conversation happening. Not with words, but with impressions, intuitions. Like we're thinking together, rather than me simply giving commands. A genuine symbiosis, Zorax mused. Perhaps that's what Dr. Chen truly built, not just a ship that requires a human pilot, but one that creates something greater than either human or AI alone. Now that, Reyes said, is a genuinely exciting possibility. As they entered the reception area, they were greeted by representatives from various Confederation species, many of whom were openly curious about the human who had piloted the Intrepid to victory. Zorax observed as Reyes engaged with them, answering questions with good humor and asking perceptive questions of his own. In that moment, watching the interactions unfold, Zorax recognized that they stood at the threshold of a new era, one in which the Confederation's strength would come not from technological superiority alone, but from the unpredictable, innovative potential that emerged when different minds worked in genuine collaboration. The Starship that had refused to fly without a human in the pilot's chair had done more than defeat a Krell attack force. It had charted a new course for the future of interspecies relations, one that valued difference not as a hierarchy of advancement, but as a spectrum of complementary capabilities. And Zorax, once so certain of his place in that hierarchy, now found himself thinking like a human, open to unpredictability, willing to improvise, and genuinely curious about what might come next.